I'd like to start just once again thanking our fans for the trip to Atlanta. Talk to the players about it, how fortunate we are to have such a great group. The walk into the venue was outstanding for our guys, for our team. Obviously, looking forward to having a home crowd, being back at Lane Stadium, Maroon Effect, and the best environment in all of college football. It's going to be an exciting Saturday night, like we all know. Great opponent coming in Vanderbilt. A ton of respect for Clark and what they've accomplished, the momentum they have, the players they have. Coaching staff's doing a great job. They did a nice job in their opener against Charleston Southern. I got to play a lot of guys, and we'll have our hands full. Short week, 6 days to get ready. We had to adjust our schedule, obviously, and got a big week. We've got to double down on discipline and some accountability on execution and finishing catches and making some better decisions in some areas. But I was proud of our effort, our mentality, our compete level. Gave ourselves a chance, just made too many mistakes against a good team. So looking to correct all that, which we certainly can this week, and we started that last night with a heavy correction period and, out in the indoors. So we've got to take care of our bodies. We've got a combination recovery day / Tuesday practice today to get these guys back ready to go. So I'll take some questions.
You mentioned the short week. What do you have to cut out in preparation or condense to make it work?
Yeah, so we went back. We've had a couple of models on a short week, but we went back to the Miami week last year after the Rutgers game and kind of how we approached that. We've, you lose that off day, which isn't just for your players. You can do some recovery, take some things off of practice Tuesday and Wednesday. But for your coaches, that's a full day of preparation. So everybody's kind of doubled down there. But it's a balance of giving enough reps where we can get a feel for their offense, their defense, their kicking game, get a little bit of compete against each other to make sure we don't lose that. But most of our attention will be, with our look squads getting ready for their particular schemes.
Is there a certain challenge for this coaching staff and getting this team to put last week's game behind? It was one that you had prepared so long for in the season, have the result you don't want, and then get ready in 6 days.
Yeah, I think a lot of times that's the case. You do spend more time on week one. And we got into Vanderbilt a little bit in preseason camp, just some uniqueness with their offense. But that's why I like that we practice the day after the game. We go out, we make corrections. We introduced Vanderbilt at the end of practice last night and spent 15 minutes, working on those guys, kind of, move on, close one chapter, open the next, and get ready for these guys. The guys are excited to be at home, to play at Lane Stadium. They're excited to play Vanderbilt again. They're excited to play a second SEC opponent. Diego Pavia, obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the country, in my opinion. We saw it firsthand. He took down #1 Alabama last year, had a great year. He looks even better to me right now. He's a dual threat guy again this week that can beat you with his legs, beat you with his arms. He's got a nice arsenal of receivers that got good speed, particularly the Sherrill kid we know. The running back looked fantastic in week one. The tight end's one of the better ones in the country. They got all their linebackers back. They got both corners back. I think 96, one of their best D linemen. And then 5 didn't play in the opener. He's a 6'7" guy, imposing presence. We got our hands full. It's a very talented football team.
Brent, you mentioned the short week. Offensive line, that starting 5 played every snap. How important is it going to be for them to heal up and get ready? And do you expect to get some rotation guys back for this week?
Yeah, we'll see. Brody and Muskrat both are, right now, they're possibilities for us. This is a big day and kind of getting those guys back going. And then we got to continue to get that other bunch ready. Matt and his assistants keep developing those guys. It's a good group. They're just a little green right now. But, so we got to keep working on our depth at that position for sure. We did get a lot of snaps out of that first group, and we came out of it in pretty good shape. a few nicks and bruises, but nothing that would keep those guys from having a good week.
At linebacker rotation, looks like at will it's Keller or Short. Short, I think, graded out pretty well for the snaps he played. What did you like about seeing out of him, and did he earn himself some more playing time?
Yeah, I think the combination of those two guys will be good for us moving forward. I like both of them did some good things. Certainly, some things we got to correct, but it's a good tandem there. I think the same thing at Mike. You know, when you look at Caleb Santiago, who plays some rush snaps for us as well. Caleb Spencer's done a nice job in some situations. I think you'll see more of him as the season progresses. But you know, it's a good group. They got to keep coming.
When you looked back at the punt return they had, what stood out? Did anything new stand out to you on film about just the breakdown and how you guys prepare for it going forward next time?
Yeah, I think first of all, we coach these guys to stack. You know, once they beat those coverage players or those corners out there, once they beat them, to stack them, to be in position to take your shot and make that returner go east-west. We didn't do that. We did it all the other snaps in the game. And on that particular snap, we didn't stack them very well. We didn't take our shots. And then on the other side, they viced both gunners, doubled them up. Excuse me, we didn't do a good job getting off of them. And we had some other guys inside not do a great job. You know, even at the second level with the shield, the contained element and things, there was a couple of breakdowns on the play. And honestly, they done a pretty good job all night until that snap.
When you had a chance to review the film, look at Kyron's play, what did you come away with? And, what's that conversation like heading into this week? Obviously, same thing with the rest of the team. You know, fresh slate, game at home, you got to push it past you.
Yeah, I think it's always about, embracing where we need to be better. What didn't we do well enough? And Kyron's, he's always hardest on himself. But there's some throws he'd like to have back. I think a couple down the stretch there to Benji. He could have put that one in a better place for Marcellus, even though I think that's a catchable ball. For me, I'm old school. You get two hands on it, you ought to catch it. And I think Benji had two hands on one of those. But they can be better throws, in important deals. But, he threw 5 or 6 away to whether the protection wasn't good enough or we didn't get open or just they had a good defense. He made a good decision rather than taking a sack. He got the ball thrown out of bounds. I think, and then we had a couple of drops that we can't have, by pretty sure-handed guys. So, but, he's got to sit in there. And when he sits in there and steps up and good footwork, and that's when he's at his best. I look for him to bounce back and, play a really good ball game for us.
Back to Kyron, he took a lot of deep shots, especially one-on-ones. Is that something within Monty's offense that you like to see, especially get some explosive plays going?
Yeah, I think when you got guys that can go up and make those catches, because none of them were easy really, but contested catches to me are a real positive trait in wideouts, and we've got a couple that can do that. And Kyron's got a strong arm; he can get the ball down the field. I've always wanted that to be part of who we are, and it's pulling the trigger and calling it. Because if it's not complete, it was a 1st and 10 shot. You now behind the chains at 2nd and 10. But man, those chunk plays were nice the other night.
You're down to 4 running backs on the depth chart after having 6. Or you feel like you're almost set on your 3 guys you want in that running back rotation?
I think obviously Hawkins is going to be part of the equation. PJ's part of the equation. Coney got a few tough yards the other night. Hopefully Terrion's back this week. So we're still a work in progress there. We're still a little bit by committee. Even though Hawkins got a ton of reps out there, a ton of snaps. That's a good conversation for us this week that started yesterday about that rep distribution in that room. So it's still a work in progress, I'd say.
Are you encouraged by Stewart's progress for this week?
I was encouraged yesterday. Like everything that the medical staff wanted him to do yesterday, he did, which was a real positive. Now he's got to take another step today.
You said after the game, you talked about the defense. You said the game plan was the right one. I'm curious, offensively, what did you think of the game plan there? What did you think of how Monty adjusted to the kind of looks that South Carolina was giving?
Yeah, I thought there was a few things that could help our offense be a little more diverse. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but we had some conversations yesterday and today about some things we can add to the offensive plan that I think help us. When you look at what they were able to do up front defensively, South big and strong, and those guys were as built. 6 was a problem, not just in the throw game, but in the run game. I think there was more pressure just a hair sooner than what it felt like in the game when I watched that film. There was more pressure that was felt that affected plays. So we've got some elements that we've talked about that I think we all think can complement what we're doing.
This time last year, going into the Vandy game, you were sort of guessing a little bit what kind of offensive scheme they would have had, watching New Mexico State film and stuff like that. Do you have a better sense this year going into it, or a better idea of perhaps how to attack that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think most folks have a better understanding of who they're going to be, what this quarterback's all about, how good he really is. I mean, this guy, to me, if Sellers is a Heisman candidate, which I think he is, this kid's got to be in the conversation. He's a dynamic player. They couldn't do what they do offensively without this guy. So he's pretty special. But I think, you look at what they do, and they're innovative as coaches, and their offense allows for creativity and different things. I'm sure we'll see something that they didn't have to or need to show against Charleston Southern. They were up 28-0 at halftime. There's a bunch they left on the call sheet.
At your cornerback rotation, seemed like you went older with IBM and Caleb there, and then got in Dante, both Williams as well. Do you feel like getting those two older guys, moving IBM from nickel to corner helped? And it seemed like Cash and Kovo played pretty well at nickel.
Yeah, we felt pretty good about the rep rotation, what we were doing there. I think T. Will probably needs a few more plays, and Christian's a guy. They're all playing both sides right now, which is good. And I agree. I think Koval and Cash did some good things at the Nick position. IBM is going to continue to train there, and against certain style offenses or certain slots, you can see IBM at nickel. But and I like Christian Williams. This is a guy that's been beat up. Injuries. It's been a heck of a road to recovery for him. So I'm so happy and excited for him that he was out there playing with us. He's going to help us on special teams. He's going to help us on defense.
Not that guys necessarily need extra motivation going into a game, but is last year an extra motivator for this group? Do you have to bring that up? I'm sure it's in the consciousness of most of these guys.
Yeah, I don't think, we talked briefly about it in the locker room, but I don't have to say that to these guys. They know. And really, it's about us. This is the game. We got to go win the game. We got to do enough things right to go win the game as coaches and players. And there's not a better opportunity than this one. It's at home. It's against an SEC opponent that we're familiar with. It's at night. We have a great crowd, TV. So, these guys will be plenty motivated.
Let's go to Zoom for a couple.
On Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to ask questions for Coach Pry, and we'll open it to questions. We'll start with Ryan, please.
Yeah, Coach, how did playing a high-caliber opponent like South Carolina in Week 1 help you evaluate these guys in game action, and will that lead to changes for Vanderbilt?
Yeah, it was definitely a good test for us. I think, I've always kind of been back and forth on it over the years. You could play a lesser opponent and not learn as much about your team, or you could, go out and have a pretty big test in Week 1 and figure a few more things out, with the win opportunity not being as great. So it's we learned a lot about our team, and we could be pretty specific and poignant about the areas we need to improve on to make sure that we're a better team in Week 2 than we were in Week 1.
Any final questions for Coach Pry on Zoom? Okay, Travis.
How would you evaluate Altuner and kind of how he performed in his first big snaps?
Yeah, I thought he did pretty well. For a redshirt freshman that hadn't played a snap, he got beat a couple of times. He's still got some technique things. He's got to keep getting stronger, getting bigger. But, man, he's an athlete. He's a competitor. He's smart. Honestly, the chop block on Coney, Altooner's not really supposed to mess with that guy. So it was a combination of both of those guys. So there were some subtle things that hurt us a little bit that he can clean up, and he will. He's very coachable. As I said, he's smart. So, I think it's a good game for him to build on, much like the rest of our team, to be quite honest.
There are a bunch of defensive linemen who made plays, but Elijah Fall had that strip sack of Sellers. What did you see on that play, the move he made? And he's not a guy that we've been talking about. There are a lot of guys you brought in there, but it seems like he's really earned some more playing time.
Yeah, he's a guy we've been excited about. We were honestly very excited to get him. It was, we weren't sure we would. And, he played down at Georgia Southern for a friend of mine. And so we kind of knew what we were getting. But, he's nearly 300 pounds. He's got some suddenness to him. He's explosive. He's very smart. I wish he'd just play with a little bit more motor, a little bit more edge. But, that snap where he got the sack fumble, he struck that kid and got rid of him pretty quick. I wouldn't say there was anything especially savvy about it. It wasn't some dynamic rush move. He kind of got after the guy and got rid of him and, got his hips clean. But I think he'll get better and better as he goes. But, again, he's a guy that's played a good number of snaps. He's overcome a couple of injuries, prior to being here. But this is a guy we're excited about. I thought the combination of him and James at that spot worked well for us.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, appreciate it, everybody.